a weekly update from the Russo-Ukrainian war. I'm here in Odessa. We have electricity, as you can see, at least for a few hours. It has been off quite a bit in the last few weeks, but it is gradually getting better. So fingers crossed for my coverage that continues. So just very briefly in this live stream, drop your comments and your questions down below. 3 things to keep your eye on this week in the Russo-Ukrainian war. Number 1 are the negotiations. The US delegation will meet with Vladimir Putin. That is Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's special envoy for the Russo-Ukrainian war, but effectively he only ever goes to Moscow. He's never been to Ukraine, not even once. And he has been in this role for, I guess at this point, it's like over 9 months. So quite remarkable. Also, he will go with Jared Kushner, who is Donald Trump's son-in-law. Again, why either of these two now diplomats, I guess we can call them, would be going to represent the US when they don't have the relevant experience, background, or knowledge to deal with the Russo-Ukrainian war. Remember, this is the biggest war in Europe since World War II. Is absolutely baffling, but that clown show will continue. My prediction has been that these efforts to get Ukraine, in effect, to capitulate in the medium term, that's what all these deals that the Trump administration has promoted over the last, say, 10 days or so have actually meant. All this will fail, and I don't even think that the Russian side will agree, because Vladimir Putin wants a short-term capitulation. He does not want to risk, in this position where he feels secure in power in Russia, even taking the chance that he might have to wait 6 months, 2 years, 4 years in order to crush Ukraine. He basically feels that it's in his interest to hold out for even more at the moment. So again, we will see a lot of political energy focused on that. I don't expect it to go anywhere. It will be interesting to see the fallout once it becomes clear that these current efforts are doomed to fail. Just like the situation on the battlefield is an impasse. Neither side's economy has collapsed. Ukraine now produces the majority of its armaments, and the rest it gets from its many European allies. The US just provides intelligence, intel, and they also are an arms dealer selling weapons to Ukraine's European allies, and then they get passed on to Ukraine. So not really seeing the leverage. The leverage that Donald Trump has over Russia is to do with sanctions and sanction enforcement. Again, neither of this is likely to be a game changer and actually be enough leverage to force even either side, never mind both sides, to agree to a deal. Second thing to watch is what we've seen over the last few days in the Black Sea, which is Ukraine attacking, and in other parts of the world as well, the Russian shadow fleet or other Russian exports, whether it happens to be their resources like oil, or it happens to be there was a ship that was struck just off the coast of Turkey that was exporting sunflower oil from Russia. So we will see a continuation of that, and presumably we will see Russia also attacking some sort of maritime shipping in retaliation. This again indicates to me the lack of leverage that the continuing lack of leverage that the Trump administration has since they have stopped supplying Ukraine with weapons or financial support, because it's now so limited. If you compare it to the Biden administration, who was able to basically force the Ukrainians not to use the weapons they were giving them for maximum effect, or targeting things like the shadow fleet. The Biden administration was particularly concerned about the price of oil with the upcoming US elections, which they ultimately lost. Now we see Ukraine change strategy. It has been striking Russian exports and their oil industry quite heavily over the last couple of months. And actually some other countries have complained to Ukraine, like Kazakhstan, because some of the facilities that they were using Russia to export their resources have also been hit. Expect that to continue. And the third thing to keep your eye on is on the battlefield, which is the situation in Pokrovsk and Mirhorod, where Russia has claimed, and actually Kupiansk as well, which is further north in the Kharkiv Oblast. In those situations where Russia has, maybe you could say, an operational encirclement, but not an actual physical encirclement of the Pokrovsk-Mirhorod conurbation there, and also in Kupiansk, they don't really control the city at all, I would say at this point. But Vladimir Putin has said that they do, which is quite interesting. He is trying to create, at least in the media, the impression by just repeating it that those cities are about to fall. When, if you compare it to, say, 2 weeks ago, Ukraine has actually taken back a little bit of control in both areas with counterattacks, and neither place is cut off or surrounded. The situation in general on the battlefield has changed quite considerably in, say, the last 2 years. I actually watched a documentary called 2000 Meters to Andriivka, which was filmed in, it seems like the early summer maybe of 2023 in the Donbass, where most of the drones were observational drones. There were some drones that were kamikaze, and there were some drones that were dropping bomblets. However, there, a lot of the fighting was going trench by trench and actually shooting and throwing grenades at the soldiers that were in those trenches in order to clear them out. It was costing Ukraine a considerable amount of casualties in order to take back that territory. Today, that would not be possible because they would just get hit by kamikaze drones as soon as they stick their head out. So you now have an increasingly growing no man's land, or a gray area, where there's just drones flying around everywhere from both sides, and neither side can really control that because they can't actually move safely in those areas. At least at this point in the fighting, maybe they will figure out countermeasures to the drones going forward, and then the no man's land will be smaller in the future, or it will continue to enlarge itself. So having an operational circumvent means it's very, very difficult. Everything is under fire control in terms of getting supplies in and out. Maybe technically correct, but it does not mean that those areas are surrounded. And it doesn't look like the Ukrainians are actually preparing to leave Mirorad for the moment, because in effect they can get the supplies probably in and out through their own drones. And the drones now can be used to resupply forces that are in a pocket, so to say. So it's interesting to keep an eye on that and see if Ukraine continues to make small technical advances there, actually liberating perhaps and making an encirclement less possible. Putin has already committed to this, so he really has to keep pouring resources into those two areas now in order to eventually take them. That could prove to be very costly for Russia, but in the short term, because they are in cahoots with elements of the Trump administration to pressure Ukraine into a medium-term capitulation agreement, this would seem to be the strategy that they've gone for, to just create a lot of hullabaloo in the media that they've seized these territories, when the evidence from the ground is that they have not. A lot of the talking points of Vladimir Putin are repeated even in the mainstream Western media, not entirely, but many of those outlets just repeat whatever Russia's claims are, or they give them equal weight to the Ukrainian claims without having any real knowledge and looking what the situation on the ground is. So those are the three things to keep your eye on this week. Drop your comments down below in the description, and I will be filming a few videos outside. The weather should be a little bit better in terms of sunshine by the weekend here in Odessa. It is very foggy, it is very cold outside, and quite damp and humid, so not the best conditions for being outside, and definitely not the best conditions if you're planning an offensive. It's kind of very muddy everywhere if you are those Russian forces that are now under increasing pressure from the Russian leadership to make advances and seize Pokrovsk and Kupiansk. I think Russia actually has different names for those cities. I saw it yesterday, but I don't remember what they are, and it's kind of irrelevant. Anyway, so Pokrovsk, Mirorad, Conurbation there, and Kupiansk, which is up in the Kharkiv Oblast. So I'll leave it at that. Do побачення. And yeah, I need to get more of these t-shirts. We got the Ukrainian Farmer Forces here, which is a reference to, especially in 2022 and 2023, when the Ukrainian farmers were able to collect so much Russian military equipment that was abandoned in the fields, especially around Kyiv and Kharkiv. Do перемоги!